good afternoon. It's really, really good to see you. How are you?
Good afternoon to you too, Tim. It's good to see you again, once again. I'm blessed, thank you. And
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here. And good
Awesome.
afternoon to the audience and the guests.
Lovely. Thank you very much. You know, it's funny. I mentioned the summit to you probably 4 or 5 months ago. Was that the first time you heard about it?
Yep, it was the first time I heard about it.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months ago, I mentioned to you that I'd really like you to be featured here because as I mentioned in earlier session, I think before you logged on, that I am extremely passionate about female entrepreneurs, and it's all dedicated, inspired by my mother. My mother and father worked the same job, but my dad got paid more. So the idea of gender pay gaps became interesting to me at a very early age. The idea of the microaggressions, the challenges, and the friction and the barriers that women face became important to me. All of these things. So from the work we did at Vova Clico, that I'm very, very passionate about women's leadership. And congratulations becoming a finalist
Thank
in
you.
that awards. Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you.
So let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit about who you are. Where did you grow up? You're South African, so which part of South Africa? And tell us a little bit about how you got to this point, because you've got a very, very interesting background. Your background into this energy and solar space is unconventional, and I think these stories need to be told.
Absolutely. It really is unconventional, Tim. As you may know that, we've had some conversations about my background. I'm originally from Lesotho, but I currently reside in Pretoria. And I think for the most part of my life, I've been in the Free State, and I moved to Pretoria when I came to pursue my studies. And this is where I think I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, and my mom and my dad also were in business. And so I think I learned a lot of skills and trades from them. And so when I came this side, I'm like, I'm going to the city of gold to make sure that I leave a mark, and I make sure that I just explore my potential as far as becoming an entrepreneur. So in my early years of working, I used to work as a sales executive at Nissan, and I used to sell cars for a living. I always say I used to sell cars for a living, but I never knew that if you were to ask me if I would be selling solar or doing solar in my next life, I would say no, because I'm not even a technical person to start off with, right? But I think, the journey of entrepreneurship will really test you out to a point where you really try out so many other businesses, and some will work, some will fail. But I think I've landed in a gold mine opportunity where I think I'm settled enough to be in the renewable energy space. From a window cleaning company, I managed to transition it into a solar cleaning and operations company. And and I think it's, for me, what I was looking for as I started in the journey, I was looking for a sustainable business that I could stay in for almost 10, 20 years to come. And I know that it will still remain, it will still be relevant, and there will still be tons and tons of opportunities to explore.
Let's zoom in on the solar energy space. I know that as a young dynamic entrepreneur in this space who has sold things, who has offered services, at the end of the day, the principles are similar. So whether you are offering a service at a car dealership, at a window cleaning, or solar, you got to prepare yourself to serve. You got to prepare yourself to lead. You got to have management practices. Let's talk a little bit about your management leadership mindset that you take into the work that you're doing. What moves you on a daily basis? What inspires you to think about when you think about growing a team, when you think about taking on this extraordinary solar space? let's talk a bit about that. And then after that, I want to come back and talk a little bit about the actual renewable space a little bit. But I want to go inside your mind. Let's peel back that lovely head of yours and try to understand how you actually wake up and lead.
Wow, that is such a beautiful question, Tim, of wanting to tap into my thinking as far as, what drives me, where do I draw my passion from? I think my passion really stems from my passion for leadership, first of all, really stems from me not seeing role models within the space that I can sort of look up to. There's only a few of them, which are women within the renewable energy space. And so I'm one person who I always want to draw some strength from someone. Or yes, I think it's always easier when you see someone who has made it, who has been successful in a specific area, to really learn from their leadership and know exactly what it is that they're doing right, so that you can also, have a duplicatable method of doing things in terms of leadership and in terms of just putting a team together for that matter. And so I think my passion really comes from that, to say when I entered the renewable energy space, there was no role model that I could reach out to, that were accessible, uh, to reach out to learn from. And so when I wake up in the morning, I think of my community. I think of what they would want to see happening. As a young person, I'm a young person, and I want to believe that we as young people need to inspire each other. So I wake up wanting to be that role model that young people, young women would look up to within the space. And I take on that on a daily basis to say, how can I be better? How can I lead with compassion? How can I lead with vulnerability? You know,
Nice,
how
nice.
can I lead with just being authentic and being me, but also inspiring others to be, to follow the footsteps of entrepreneurship, because it's very easy for anyone to just think it's difficult, but it just really takes just one step to go into it and just start.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You inspire me because you didn't, like many of us, didn't have a silver spoon, and you've been knocked down quite a bit, but you have risen to keep smiling. And let's dig into the actual business. Your business is called Solarev. Am I right?
Correct, yes.
Where did the name come from, and what exactly are you guys doing?
Lovely. I love that, because I think when you name any child, when you give birth and you name a child, it's very important who you name them, because who you name them is going to, ultimately shape their destiny, right? And so when I named my business, I was thinking of how best way can I revolutionize the solar industry that I'm entering in. And so that is how I came about the name of Solarev Solutions, to really provide solutions that are revolutionary, that are transformative, that are innovative within the renewable energy space, particularly in the solar cleaning and operation space, to really pioneer ideas and innovative technologies that could transform the industry. And yeah, so that's how I came about the name of the company. And as far as what we do within Solarev, we are an operations and maintenance company that focuses on solar cleaning. So we provide solar cleaning and solar maintenance and solar operations and monitoring of systems and assets and solar assets within the renewable energy space. And we serve commercial, industrial, and utility scale plants to be able to help them optimize the system, be able to make sure that they get their return on investment as far as the energy that is expected to be produced, because most of them are on a PPA agreement, which I'll touch on a bit later on. PPA agreements they expect you to produce the output that you said you would. Investors expect that from you. And so we help them optimize the systems to be able to maximize and reach its peak. That's what we're doing.
Wow. Yeah. Who is your competition?
Sure. I have big and small competitors, but the current competitors that are really big is the developers that are currently developing the solar sites, right? Those are one of our biggest competitors, because what they do, they sort of in-house everything, whereas we are a standalone company that focuses on just one element of the line of business within the value chain. So the developers are our competitors, and the installers are our competitors as well. The installers are
wow.
As much as they have the maintenance as an afterthought, but I think once they get opened up to the idea, then they sort of want to integrate their services into their business.
Before we get into a few more nuts and bolts of your actual business, I'm going to ask you some hard questions like, the basics. How often you clean your panels, this type of thing, because I want people to be aware of the actual nuts and bolts of the actual business that you're doing. But I also want to talk a little bit about, since this is a U.S. Africa summit, do you have dreams to exporting your services and the work you guys are doing to America, to Europe, to the northern countries? What are your thoughts about taking your country, your business across countries globally?
Lovely. Thank you so much for that for that question, Tim. I think to answer the first question, which is how often do you have to clean your panels, right? And I think a lot of people would most probably have like a myth of thinking that rain will clean your panels, and as long as rain comes, rain will clean your panels, which is a myth that we have to constantly be dealing with. But the frequency of cleaning panels is depending on the site, because it's site dependent on and environmental dependent. You looking at anything between twice or quarterly, on a quarterly basis, right? So say, for instance, like your solar farms, if you're looking at solar farms particularly, first of all, you're looking at the environment, the surrounding environment of how the plant is built and where the plant is built. Usually farms are very soily, right? And wind and sandy. And you'd particularly want to make sure that you clean the systems on a quarterly basis because of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to answer the second question that you had. You had a question about what was your second question, Tim?
No, well, I just want to know about your goals of going international, exporting your business, partnering with, international. We spend a chunk of the morning looking at the resources and our ability to, partner, to engage with U.S. resources to help South African entrepreneurs go either to the U.S. or partner with U.S. to come to South Africa to solve problems. You have technologies you have services that the U.S. doesn't have, and vice versa. And we were just talking this morning about the power of partnership and collaboration. Any goals to taking your business internationally?
Yes, absolutely. I do have goals for taking this business internationally. I have been engaging with a U.S. company that is running a solar sales company. And I think one of the goals that Solarev has is to really expand and access the market internationally. So this is one of the things that are in the pipeline.
Nice. Have you had a chance to partner with any international partners? Has there been any collaborations developed from your side at this stage, or have you just kind of gone at this solo?
I think at the moment we're still in talks. It's still in very early stage, so we haven't really solidified our partnerships yet. But at the moment, I'm still solo in this.
Okay. Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So you're going at this, you're bootstrapping this, going at this solo. Amazing.
Absolutely. Until I find a good suitable partner in the US, then I'll sort of migrate and leave you guys in South Africa. I'm joking.
You can't go anywhere. We need you. We need you here. Guys, I want you to be queuing up your questions. By a show of hands, how many of you guys are into renewables or interested in renewables at all? Like, just kind of show me your hand. Okay, Zuki is as well. Okay, so I want you to be like prepping your questions because, again, there's two sides of this conversation that I wanted to have. Number one, I wanted to have a conversation about the nuts and bolts of actual doing business in renewables. And then we can talk about the other broader rhetorical space, as well, in terms of motivational stuff. But I really wanted to talk about the nuts and bolts. Take me back to when you got your first client. What was that like? And what did you have to do to prepare yourself to get this first client? And then let me just be specific. Was it easier or harder than you thought getting your first client?
Tim, that question it reminds me, it's like a trigger. It reminds me of when I was scared and I didn't know what I was doing and I was new in the space. But it also reminds me of some exciting, milestones within my business. So my first client, I got them from a networking event, believe it or not.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got them from a networking event. And for me to prepare for that networking event, I think just in general to the preparation of just being ready to be able to speak to a developer to offer my services, just that part, right? It took me, I think it took me a year to be able to be capacitated, to have the right equipment, to have the right resources, uh, to be able to take on the market, right? Because I had to do a lot of research, I had to do a lot of compliances, I had to do a lot of training to be able to be ready for the industry. And once I was ready, and I knew I was ready, and I knew that what I'm doing is going to work for sure, then I approached my first client, which I met at the at one of the solar asset and storage events. It was an awards on that day, and I approached the client. I approached the developer. I'm like, I want to work with you. And that's
Wow.
how I approached him. I said, I want to work with you. I've been meaning to approach you guys, and this is what I'm doing. And that's how he invited me to a meeting, and I pitched my business, and he gave me an opportunity and believed in me.
Was there any, and I know entrepreneurs feel this often, especially, and I'm very sensitive to the idea that sometimes we make these conversations intimidating. Sometimes we talk about these international transactions, AGOA, we start talking at a high level and we forget that people have emotions, they have fears. How did you overcome imposter syndrome? How did you overcome that feeling of inadequacy, if you had those feelings at all? If you had them, number one, how did you overcome them? And then number two, what do you do to sustain not letting that feeling cripple you?
So, wow. Wow, that is such a good question, because I think as entrepreneurs, we struggle so much with imposter syndrome, right? And we always second guess what we are doing. We always criticize so much. And I think when my approach to him, or to the first client, was from a place of exploring. At the same time, I had so much fear because I didn't know what to expect. At the same time, I had so much fear because I didn't know what the response would be. and whether I'm ready or not to actually take on this big client, because it was a big commercial client. So my first client was not a residential client where I can say I'll build up my confidence and, clean a house or two to build up my confidence in my skill and my craft. But it was a big client, a commercial client. And so I went in there with so many of my fears and my insecurities about the craft that I had to offer. At the same time, I went there with conviction and confidence because I knew that I was prepared. I knew that I had resources that could support me in taking on my first job. And so it was sort of like a balance. It gave me a little bit of balance, some confidence, and I think gravitating from a place of fear to a place of courage is a game changer, because in spite of fear, when you are courageous enough, you still have the fears, but you still take on the step to want to fulfill that idea. Because for me, what was important was I want to really test whether this idea of mine is valid or not by getting the first client. And that's, for me, that was my goal, and I wanted to do that regardless of how I felt.
How do you, is this, in South Africa, we know globally renewables and solar is exploding with growth. But what do you see as the future in South Africa? Is this a growing industry? Do you see it as an industry? There was this spurt, this moment where we had the ESCOM challenge, and then everyone just felt like they had to convert immediately. Now that ESCOM is trying to work through its challenges, is it still growing at the same pace? Like, what do you see happening right now at the moment?
That's a good perspective to be looking at things. Now that we've sort of subsided from the ESCOM challenge, now what, for the solar space, what's next? And I think to answer that, I would say that the dynamics and the growth does not change, right? The sustainability goals do not change, of
I see. Yes, yes, yes.
reaching the net zero carbon emission. Those don't change. They've been signed and sealed, so the goals are still there, the objectives are still there, right? So regardless of whether ESCOM is with us or not, we still have the market growing, right? And we see an exponential growth within the solar space, particularly with like a 10% increase from now until 2029. And this is not going to stop, because the goal is to reach, carbon emission to net zero by 2050. So that means, for the next 6 years from now, we are going to be growing as a solar industry. So there is potential for private and public, sectors to participate, for individuals to be, a part of the just energy transition. And I think now is the time for anyone who wants to enter the market to really hone in and make sure that they capitalize on the gold mine that we have. I call it a gold mine because it's a rush, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's in it and everyone's excited about it. Everyone's talking about it. So what better time to join the renewable energy space than now?
I have some rapid fire questions for you. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, the first one is coffee or tea?
Tea, always.
Okay, but I'm kidding. The questions are a bit more difficult than that. What type of equipment is used for cleaning panels? Are they environmentally friendly? Let's get into some rapid fire questions about the actual business.
Okay. So the kind of equipment that we use, one, they are they are biodegradable, right? And they are eco-friendly products. And this is now me referring to the actual chemicals that are being used on site. But apart from that, we use actual equipment like rotating brushes, auto rotating brushes, and reverse osmosis filtration systems that purify water to make sure that the water that cleans the panels is has got no impurities. So
Okay.
that, yeah, that's very important, because when you do clean panels with just water, say for instance, you're a farmer and you're cleaning, your panels from a borehole water system, that would likely have some impurities in it and some debris in it. And so it's very important that you actually purify the water so that you don't leave any streaks or any buildup on the panels for longevity.
So what happens after you clean? Is there a noticeable increase in production from the panels?
Absolutely, there is. There's a huge, increase in productivity, especially in the energy that is produced. I remember we did a study at one of the sites that we are currently doing, that we are currently cleaning. It's about a 1.4 megawatt system. So I think in June, the panels were dirty and the system had not been cleaned for the whole year. And when we came to site and we cleaned the site, it increased for about 40% in production. So you
Wow.
see the graphs changing from the time that you're cleaning it to the time that is the before and after. So you see the drastic change, and that I think that language is that language that investors really understand and want to see.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
want to take a quick commercial break, and I want to thank all of our partners that have helped make this possible. I want to thank our MBDA Federal Procurement Center, who's really the driving force behind this, KDM and Associates, U.S. Department of Commerce, Cada Energy, all of our partners. I want to thank you so much for investing in the diaspora and connections in energy, agriculture, even health. Thank you guys so much. I know our U.S. team will be waking up shortly and be taking over at 2 p.m. It's 1:30 now. Before we go any further, because I do have a few more questions for you, are you okay with time, Rapelong?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have a question from, it looks like Kanye. Kanye?
Good afternoon, Rapelong. Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much, Kanye. Good afternoon to you. Good to have you.
Thank you, ma'am. My question for you is, given the unprecedented levels of load shedding that we witnessed in the previous year, it's very important for us to introduce renewables into agriculture. But I just wanted to ask, what are the challenges that are being faced when it comes to adopting renewable energy solutions in agriculture, and what strategies can we use on a micro level just to overcome these obstacles? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kanye, for that question. I think to answer that question, I will start to begin with, some of the challenges that are there at the moment for, I'll come to the level of the farmers, right? Because we are in an agricultural space. To access the renewable energy, technology is not difficult to access the technology, right? But the challenge is where you as a farmer want to be able to um, to take on projects, or to put up a system on your farm and sort of take advantage of the solar, uh, and be able to implement it as one of your alternatives, right? The challenge there is that you find that, I think the previous speaker, Umar Ruping, was talking about the capital. Do you have the capital? Do you have the capital outlay to sort of put out that structure on your farm? And do you have access to the funders that will help you build up your project and develop your project? So those are some of the challenges that I see taking place. And, one of them is also having a balance sheet to be able to back on those projects. So I think from a micro level, that's where the challenges are, and the necessary training also. There's a skills gap that is available, that exists within the market, and those are some of the challenges of saying how do we then bridge the gap, the skills gap, to be able to capacitate farmers and teach them and know how they can be able to participate within the value chain, and just be clued up on how to actually, just the training, the basic training of how you can actually benefit from the renewables. So those are the challenges that are there. There's no access to information and training. But I think there's a few companies that are really working hard to make sure that they put some, skills, they bridge the gap of skills in the space. And then to answer your second question, your second question was, what was it about? Oh yes, the strategies, right? The micro strategies that that you would benefit when you integrate the solar into your farm as a farm owner. Is one of them is, you are able to power your irrigation system with solar, right? So your irrigation system will be able to help you consistently have a water supply, right? And then the other strategy of implementing, or rather taking on the route of solar, is through solar powered cold storages. For some of you who do agri processing, you'll then be able to capitalize on having a solar powered storage, because that will essentially then increase like your shelf lifespan of your products that you have. There's a couple of strategies, but I think those are some of the strategies that are there, including the agrivoltaic, which I'll go into detail. But yeah, those are the strategies that you could sort of integrate almost immediately to take advantage of the renewables.
Thank you so much, Rapelong. We know that, we've had people on the call from Botswana, Zambia, Zim this morning. This is a regional conversation. So for the moment, you are the sub-Saharan ambassador for solar, just so you're okay with that, okay? So just smile and accept it. I enjoy giving people virtual titles. We'll celebrate your new title soon. Don't stress. But we have a question. It says, I think this one comes from Khotso. He says, I'm exploring ways to leverage the current electricity challenges in Zambia as potential business opportunities. Does your company currently operate in Zambia, or would you be interested in expanding to the Zambia? Boom, guys, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're doing this. We need you, Solarev. I can already see the advert. Solarev. We're in Zambia as well.
I love the sound of that.
So you can answer the question. Yeah, you can answer the question.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much, Kutso, for that question. We are currently not in Zambia. We're not operating in sub-Saharan African countries at the moment, but we do have the desires to really expand our borders into your Zambia, your not Zimbabwe, definitely not Zimbabwe, but yeah, Zambia, Botswana. We are looking into expanding our markets, and given the opportunity, because I know that Zambia is one of the countries that really are struggling with electricity, and there's a huge opportunity there for growth.
Just a little bit about, have you taken, okay, let me let Kanya ask her question before I come back to mine, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much, Tim. I'll keep it brief. So I just want to take it back to the South African context, and I hope people don't mind. But South Africa is facing high levels of youth unemployment. And when we talk about smart farming and green farming, it unlocks opportunities of employment. So I just wanted to ask, how do we then bridge the gap to inform youth out there of these opportunities and ensure that we upskill them so that they can actually do these jobs when there are opportunities available? And if there are opportunities out there already, how can they access them, and what kind of opportunities are there? Thank you so much.
Wow, good question. I mean, listen, now you're also taking on the role of Minister of International Youth Development. So I'm giving you so many titles. And as the International Development of Youth Minister, you'll be working very close with Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie. And then while you and Gayton are on Twitter and X posting, I want to make sure that you answer these questions from a panel on X and Twitter. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, Kanye, for that jam-packed question. That is regarding the skills development and, the sort of employment preparation, the career path pertaining the youth. So to answer that, sure, your question was jam-packed, but I'll try by all means to touch on, some valuable points that you could sort of take home with. First of all, with the current unemployment that is there and the communities that are in, coal dependent communities, right? I think that is where the focus will be to be able to capacitate them, to be able to make sure that the skills gap that is available from a technical perspective and from an employability perspective is bridged, right? So currently, as we speak, we are currently working with a company that has put together a skills initiative workshop, right? So this skills initiative workshop is really is focused on capacitating entrepreneurs, right, who are in different sectors, or professionals who are in different, professions, or any individual who's really interested in the renewable energy space, to capacitate entrepreneurs so that entrepreneurs can go out into their communities and be able to create these jobs that you are talking about, right? So this skills initiative workshop is really focused on making sure that entrepreneurs are capacitated as far as understanding the value chain, what the value chain looks like of renewable energy space. As a business owner, as a professional, as an individual interested, how can you be able to participate within the renewable energy space, right? And so these workshops take place we started one this month, and we started one actually earlier on the year, but we sort of went back into it because we realized the need for people to participate in it, to say people need these skills to be able to capacitate to respond to the mega crisis of unemployment. So I hope I'm answering your question, but there is some initiatives for a skills gap and to create like an employability system for the youth that is available, Kanye. And I'm happy to share some details after the meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm sure, Kanye, we will make sure she gets in touch with you. We have a question from Zuki. Zuki wants to know, can you share the training institutions in your space, local or abroad, for yourself and your teams? Where did you go to training? I'm sure you didn't just get on a roof and just start wiping yourself, and you don't look like you do much wiping. So where does your team and the people get training?
Okay. So firstly, when I started out in the industry, I was trained internationally by a company called International Solar Cleaning Academy. So that's where I attended one of my courses.
Is it expensive? Like, did you get a bursary? What happened? How did you pay for yourself?
No. I had to bootstrap everything. So I paid for myself. I didn't get a bursary because it's an international one.
How much was it?
Sorry?
We're talking specifics here. How much was it? Was it over 10,000, under 10,000?
No, it was not expensive. It was about $300.
Oh, wow. That's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah. $300 to train you internationally. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it was $300 for that particular training. But for the skills energy workshop, we're working with a company called the DLO, Energy Resources. So DLO is a company, one of the companies that are very reputable in the space, and they have done some good strides in the space. They have one of the largest solar wind farm. And so the CEO of DLO has, has made sure that she puts in place all the skills that she's gained from the 10 years of being in the space into a skills energy workshop. And so
Wow.
we have partnered up with them to work with them to facilitate the courses within that space.
Wow. If you had to start over and you had to re-engineer your engagement into the renewable energy space, what do you wish you had known? Is there anything you wish you had known in retrospect before getting into this space?
Absolutely. I wish I knew how big of a what's this word? How big of a value chain the renewable energy space has, because right now I'm literally playing in like a small space within the renewable. I'm playing in the bottom part of the value chain. So I wish I knew how big the chain is. I wish I knew different parts of the opportunities that are available within the value chain. But at the same time, I say that everything is a stepping stone into an industry, right? And so I'm not even discrediting how I started. I mean, it's humble beginnings, but it's great because now I understand from bottom up.
Wow.
But yes, would I have changed anything or knew something better? Wish I knew something better, was that I could be able to approach farmers and start developing and partnering up with big companies.
Let's look at the next phase of your career. What do you see as an opportunity for anybody who's on the call who wants to collaborate, or for this recording is going to go out to our full database? So, no matter how many people are on the line, we're going to be sharing this to our broader global database. For somebody who wants to partner with you, what can they look forward to as your next phase as a young African female powerhouse that's evolving and growing Solarev? What does the next chapter look like for you?
Wow, I love that forward thinking question. So the next phase of Solarev is to become an IPP. Is to become an IPP, whether in the public or in the private sector, but it's to become an independent power producer.
An independent power producer. Wow.
Yes.
And you see that happening first across Africa, then internationally. How do you see that happening?
I see that playing out right here where we are in South Africa first, before anywhere else, because we've got the most sun, in the continent. So I think taking advantage of the land that we have, taking advantage of the sun, taking advantage of just the opportunities that are available within that space is what I'm going for. And it's what I would want, anyone who's on the call right now on the session to really start thinking big and start thinking how they can sort of position themselves or gain access to information to educate themselves on how to participate within the space at a bigger level, at a much higher level than how I started.
So I got a couple more quick fire questions for you, but we only have you for a few more minutes. What advice would you give to solar farmers considering solar energy as an alternative source in terms of maintenance and upkeep? Because this is at the core of your work. What advice do you have?
Yeah, so I would advise them to not think of it as an expense, but rather to think of it as a return on investment kind of service, right?
Okay.
Because this will essentially translate into them realizing their own return on investment in investing in an asset like that, first of all. But that will also guarantee them an increased lifespan of their system. So they need to take up on the maintenance plan that is available and make sure that they really maximize on it and not take it for granted.
Okay.
Because it's so the operational and the maintenance part of any solar project, whether big or small, the operational part of that is really the cornerstone of a system, a solar system. So once you miss that, you're missing the whole point of having a solar system, because you're essentially going to be replacing panels over time. 3-4 years down the line, you have to replace panels, and now the system is not working, and now the system completely shuts down.
Wow.
So I would really advise them to not take it lightly or consider it as an expense, but rather as an investment.